talking about is the New South Wales Dam Safety Framework. A little bit about how it got put together, but mainly on the framework and the reasons behind the way we put things together for the framework. So the Safety Act was created in 2015, and it didn't become fully operational until 2019, at which time we introduced the regulation to go with it. So it took 4 years, 2 years of which were spent thinking about it, for want of a better term. There were sort of different ways of doing things. So there were some false starts, but the creation of the dam safety regulation really got the kick it needed when Chris was appointed as CEO of Dam Safety at that time, or at least principal. What were you, Chris? Principal of the Dam Safety Committee or something at the time.
Executive engineer.
Executive engineer. But Chris was really the driving force behind, let's get this regulation done, and this is the way it should be done. So dam safety regulation, dam owners must comply with the requirements in the regulation, and if they don't, penalties apply. So
can we keep on asking questions as we go ahead, or
it depends how long we want to rush. Just briefly, yeah, why not?
Because our understanding when we talked to a couple of the dam owners yesterday,
yeah,
they said there was a transition for them to comply,
yes,
by 2 years.
Yes.
So 2019 the regulation came,
yes,
and the owners are given 2 years, right?
Yeah, for some things, not everything.
Uh-huh.
There were some things like the creation of a dam safety management system, those sort of things that are new. 2 years.
2 years.
So they became requirements after November 2021, correct? So that we allowed them some time to get ready. So yeah, that's essential.
Yeah, Dam Safety Regulation 2019 supplement the Dam Safety Act 2015.
Sorry, the relation or the.
Then what are the relation between Dam Safety Act 2015 or Dam Safety Regulation 2019?
Dam Safety Act 2015 is the overarching legislation for dam safety. So it sets up the objects that we're trying to meet, sets up the creation of Dam Safety New South Wales, sets up a penalty system, and says that we create regulation. So it sets the overarching framework for dam safety. Whereas the dam safety regulation creates more detail on how that's done. And it provides the day-to-day requirements that dam owners must meet. So it's the next layer of legislation, if you like. And generally, acts have got to go through Parliament. Yeah,
regulation is not required approval from the party.
Yeah, the act does.
Regulations
don't. But they can sit on the floor of the Parliament and may be disallowed by our Senate. So they're sort of secondary. They're called subordinate legislation.
Secondary legislation.
Yeah, that's what you're trying to call it. Yeah. So Paul's already talked about outcome-focused legislation, which gives the requirements for dam owners to meet in general terms, not how to do it. Good regulation generally has a mix of outcome-focused and detailed requirements. So our regulation is no different, mainly outcome-focused, but in some ways, in some areas, we must have some prescriptions, some how-tos. So we have some methodologies that are required and are compulsory, and they sit under the regulation. And that's for things like consequence category assessments, you'd call it hazard categories or hazard ratings, and risk rating calculations, which are quite complex. So those particular requirements, we put in methodologies that sit under the regulation, and they are compulsory as well. They must be used. And of course, guidelines and fact sheets. We have 5 or 6 guidelines, and we have 16 fact sheets to help our dam owners comply with the regulations. And that guidance only, they're there for assistance. So when we surveyed our dam owners last year, no surprise that they all said, we need more guidance, give us more guidance. So we just churn out more guidance. And the way that we regulate as a regulator is that we have regular audit programs, but we also have quite a large education capacity. So we're continually putting together new guidance, new seminars, webinars, those things that dam owners are very keen to attend to learn how all this works and how they can do what they need to do. So the guidance is very, very important, as are our educational activities with the dam owners. So going back to the Act at the top, let's see if we can move that. Move it out of the way. There's more than one way to do things, so written into our Act are the principal objectives of the Act. So our Act says that the whole system is there to ensure that any risks, as you can read that, are of a level that is acceptable to the community. Now that really covers a whole bunch of stuff, emphasis on risks, but also the fact that if it's written into the Act that they're acceptable to the community, that really implies you've got to do a lot of consultation with the community to determine whether they're acceptable or not. On two levels. One is your regulation and other things that you're doing as a regulator acceptable to the community in a general sense and in a particular sense. For example, we've talked about Warragamba Dam. Does the community accept the risks of that particular dam? Do they know about them? Does the dam owner talk to them about them? So that's action-packed, that statement, the fact that dam risks are acceptable to the community. And the other one is to encourage risk management, efficient safety management, and transparency. So an emphasis on management, if you like, of the risks, as opposed to, as we heard before, a standards-based approach. How do we get them there? A lot of hard work to get the regulations written between 2015 and 2019. We had an immense amount of work making regulatory change summaries, consultation meetings, frequently asked questions had to be prepared, fact sheets, impact statements with a cost-benefit analysis for introducing this new regulation that dam owners would necessarily have to put money into to comply. Lots and lots of community meetings. And as Raj mentioned, we had a 2-year transition period for the dam owners, and we really had to provide a lot of that guidance material very, very early in the piece. Because it's a scary thing if you're a dam owner and say a council, for example, and asked to create and implement a dam safety management system. I've got a blank piece of paper. What do we do? So guidance material is absolutely essential. Okay, just a bit more detail now for the regulation. It's a requirement. It defines what a declared dam is. So to get into our regulatory framework, we declare a dam as being a dam that's within our system. So to do that, once they're in our system and we've declared them as a dam of interest, the owners must comply with the regulation. They've got full responsibility and they've got penalties if they don't, which is generally motivating for them. And to be honest, it's not the financial penalties that motivate the dam owners, it's the shame of not complying. If you go to the point where you've issued with a penalty from a regulator, other dam owners, look down, what's wrong with them? So it's the motivation for our dam owners more that we need to be seen to be compliant, which is quite a powerful incentive. And how do we monitor it? We take a risk-based and outcome-focused approach. Paul talked about regular programs that we have, but we take that problem-solving approach as well to make sure that we have a mix of regular monitoring and oversight with data coming from that then drives where we might find a problem to fix. So we take the best practice approach to regulation. And as also Paul said, we are externally benchmarked against a best regulator standard to make sure that we're performing and improving. So I'd just like to go through four points or 4 themes, if you like, within the Act and the regulation, starting off with accountability for safety, the fact that we're risk-based and focus on outcomes, the fact that we do require a dam safety management system. So if a dam owner is accountable, they create a dam safety management system to prove that they're managing the risks of their dams. And we put a lot of emphasis on competent persons out there. A lot of regulatory regimes, for example, you create a design for a dam, send it to the regulator for approval. We approve the design, go and design it. We don't do that. We rely on the fact that competent persons have been involved in the design of the dam. So we make sure that the dam's been designed against a management system standard and that the competent person has been involved in that design, usually competent teams.
Is there any definitions of competent persons
We do.
defined in your regulations?
Oh, I've got one. Just a bit further down when we get
Their
there.
experience, qualifications? or
Yeah,
like that?
yeah. You'll see, it's what you'd expect.
No.
So just taking that first one. So declared dam owners are accountable for any damage or loss caused by their dams due to failure. So that's an interesting concept. Declared dam owners are accountable and we hold them accountable. So if a company or a person or a government department's accountable, that cannot be delegated to your personnel, your contractors or consultants. So you're still accountable for the safety of the dam.
It's the department as a whole, the unit.
Yeah.
The
So
entire responsibility of dam clear lies with the
Responsibility
dam.
From the dam owner, from the
Yes.
state owner, I think, right?
I'll bit more detail next slide,
Okay.
but the key theme, if you like, that I've been in regulation almost 30 years is understanding the difference between accountability and responsibility. Dam owner at a high level is accountable for the safety of the dam, another person that's going to be in court if something happens. Maybe on a criminal charge of negligence or whatever, if the dam fails. They may devolve responsibility to their operations managers and executive. They can devolve that responsibility for doing things, can't devolve accountability. Ah, excellent. Ah, good. Thank you. So who do we hold accountable as a dam owner? So this is the drum roll question. If a dam failure occurs or an incident, who do we go to talk to? Company directors, general managers of councils, CEOs of state-owned corporations. And if you've got a government department, it's the chief, the secretary is held accountable. And if you've got an individual dam owner, it's obviously the individual. So that's the people that we aim to talk to about, do you know you have a dam? And what are you doing to ensure safety of that dam? Mr. CEO or Mrs. CEO or Ms. CEO or Ms. Secretary. You've got a dam, you've got to deal with it.
Peter, this slide, I think whenever we have a workshop in India, we would like you to present this slide. With all the secretaries sitting out there. This is the whole debate that we are.
There we go.
No,
You
no,
see, we could say this because we've had legal advice from our legal people in our legal structure. That if you've got an organization like a company director, company secretary, maybe the chair, but definitely the directors are accountable.
The dam owner has also been defined in our act. For example, company director is there, in case
There
of
you go.
private company is there.
Perfect.
Head, in case of secretary of the government department, is written as head of the department,
yeah.
of water
Yeah,
resources.
same.
So it might be secretary or it might be engineering head of the department.
Yeah.
This is the problem.
Okay.
Not very popular positions, I think.
But there we are.
Yes, of course.
So that's how we establish accountability. But then next theme, and I've only just picked these out of the regulation. The regulation's got a lot of things in it, but these are the key things that make it slightly different. So we aim to be risk-based and outcome-focused. So what does that really mean in practice? So in your act, you talk about a specified dam. We have declared dam, same. That's just different words. However, our declaration criteria are totally different.
Totally different.
Yeah, totally. It's risk-based,
It is, yes.
based on the consequence of failure. So we declare a dam if it would endanger the life of a person, similar to what there's in India, or cause major infrastructure, environmental or social damage, health and social damage. So That's the criteria for declaration.
How much time and effort is required to declare a dam, a particular dam, it's a, yeah, declared?
Not long when it gets to us, because we require dam owners to do studies to determine what the consequence is. So our regulation says that we declare a dam on this basis, and we can direct the dam owner to do a preliminary study to determine if the consequences of failure are sufficiently high. Once we get that study, we will declare them. Then they have 6 months to do a full consequence
The
category.
consequences failure requires the estimation of the public at risk, probable loss of life,
Absolutely.
economic consequences, as well as other consequences.
Yep.
It requires time.
Does, yeah, but we can do a preliminary study to say, oh, on the first flash of a preliminary study, you look like you should be declared, we'll declare you. Then if they do a full consequence category assessment and they find they're not, we can take them off the declaration. But yeah, definitely, it's definitely consequence based on the criteria is based on the consequence of failure. This is an extract from the methodology I told you about, which shows how we determine what the consequence category is. But it also shows in the yellow is the areas at which we'll declare the dam. So that, for example, if our PLL is from 0.1 to 1, we're saying that, yes, we'll declare you on a loss of life basis regardless. If it's less than 0.1, in other words, no one's at risk, no people, we will still declare you if you have a major or catastrophic level of damage and loss through environment, those sorts of things. So that's how we declare the dam. And that's how we fix the consequence categories, same table. So you're saying, how do you determine what a major and catastrophic loss is? If you look at our regulation, because you can work out the PLL from dam break studies and all the rest of it. But we have tables in the methodology, and this is just an extract of one for environment, for example. So the consultants that are putting together the report for the consequence category look at what the impacts of a dam failure would have on the environment. So if your discharge is going to destroy ecosystems or have significant impacts on the ecosystem, yeah, you become a declared dam regardless. And there are other tables. There's economic impacts, there are health and social impacts. But that's sort of just a feel for how we do the things. The other aspect that Jason will go through is our risk management framework. As part of the dam safety management system, we require a rigorous risk management framework. And we require this risk report you've heard about every 5 years. Now that looks at each failure mode of the dam and looks at the likelihood and plots it on a lovely FN curve, which Jason will talk to you about. So we require them to determine the likelihood and consequence of failure in quite a complicated risk report. And they're doing this now, and as Chris said, we're starting to see dams that have been around for a long time, you know, saying we're a great dam, and they're going, oh, we just done a risk report and we're not quite as good as we thought we were. So it's a very important cornerstone of this whole risk-based thing is what risks are the dams presenting out there, and what are the failure modes, and how can they fix it? And it's a mix. There's a mix of, yeah, we need, you know, $500 million worth of infrastructure, please, because we need to build a spillway or whatever. Or a lot of these failure modes can be addressed by operations and maintenance. Rigorous maintenance programs will actually fix that particular failure.
Peter, it's not directly related to this. Was there opposition to the approval of the Dam Safety Act in Parliament?
No,
No.
no,
So no constituencies or
No.
farmers or
no, no. We've had regulation in dams since 1978. There was the 1978 Act. And that was governed on a similar basis, but not as much emphasis on a dam safety management system. But they had consequence categories, they had declared dams, very, very similar risk base. So we like to say we built on the shoulders of giants, because they were very, very good at establishing this sort of a framework for dams. We just took it one step further. No, we were very fortunate that we had a dam community that we're used to talking risk ratings, risk reports already. And we're quite world leading in introducing those sorts of things. So we were happy about that and no problems with it.
Maybe just to follow up on Luke's questions, how do the community or the dam owners respond to the penalties? Because perhaps there are some sensitivity regarding this accountability. And
Sure.
how do you communicate this so that it's become less sensitive, or there's an incentive or something else?
We've found that the threat of penalties is enough.
Uh,
We actually haven't imposed a penalty yet.
Never yet.
No, they've only been in existence fully since 2021 when you look at the timeframes, because that's when the transition period goes. So we've been going through an educational and an audit and a process where we might audit a dam, get a bunch of non-compliances, they then fix those non-compliances in the timeframe. We haven't got to the stage where we've had a dam owner that needs to be knocked on the head yet. Maybe getting close, but not yet. Which is good. And you know, our dam owners are quite reasonable usually.
Just a quick question. Did this changes in regulations or updating of the regulations led to changes in the dam ownership as well, or?
No, none, pretty much. No one got scared and says, well, maybe one or two, maybe one or two. But not at the large dam level. It's more developers that may have developed with a dam for a local authority, then go, oh, you know, here our council, would you like to take our dam?
No resignations of the CEOs?
No, we're probably not as good in our job of scaring them enough yet, because they do need to be scared occasionally. It's always good to be aware of the risk. So again, that's the other part of being risk-based. Methodologies to doing that very, very complicated risk report. And this is the bit in the regulation that says, Paul touched on it, dam owner must treat the dam risks or make them as low as is reasonably practicable. And I could be a whole 2 days talking about how that works. So you've got all these failure modes and you've got to prove for each one that what you're going to be doing to them is going to get the risks as low so far as is reasonably practicable. That's where your community consultation comes in. Cost benefit analysis about, it's going to take me $4 million. I'm going to save half a life. What's the cost benefit analysis to do with actually doing this thing? So they've got to do that themselves. They do all this themselves. They then present us with a risk report saying, we've reached our so far as reasonably practical position. And we say, okay, well, tell us how you've done that. Have you consulted with the community? Have you done a cost benefit analysis? Who's done your risk report? Has it been checked by a competent? All those things then leads to the fact that, yes, you've got your risks so far as low as is reasonably practicable.
Is there a threshold for what share of the community should be in agreement with the proposed?
Oh, great question. That's where we're at the moment. Because if you've got a large dam like Warragamba Dam, risks might be above our safety threshold. We'll talk about it in a minute. It's going to cost $200 million to bring it down below. Everybody, the 10,000 people downstream say, yes, spend the money. The rest of Sydney who's paying for this are going, whoa, that's going to cost me another $300 in my water bill every year. So you've got to make sure it's not a unanimous consultation. You've got to make sure that the people affected, mostly downstream, but also the whole community, has got a chance to talk about this. Yeah, it's a very good question. And our dam owners are they're grappling with that now. So outcome focused, we don't make the decision. We don't tell them unless we absolutely have to do this upgrade. They make the decision, but they've got to prove to us that they've gone through the process of determining that they're at that risk position. So the next one, dam safety management system, I talked about that. It's not a new thing. I've regulated in rail safety and I've regulated in aviation safety quite a number of years. They are the cornerstones of your local airline. Air India, got to have an aviation safety management system for its operations, its maintenance, its personnel. Been there for about 15 years. So they have quite a rigorous, any large aircraft carrier, any aircraft carrier in the world must have a safety management system. That's generally based on the same sorts of things that we have in our dam safety management system. Generally based on management system standards such as the ISO 9001. We base ours on an asset management system, 55001, same things. And they all have an emphasis on that risk management within that safety management. That's what makes a safety management system. A safety management system is the risk. It's not a quality management system. Risk makes it safe. And if anyone in the room's heard of that global industry standard, tailings management, that came out of the disaster in Brazil where a tailings line let go. So there was a huge push in the subsequent year to put in place that standard. Very much accountability management system approach out of that. So we're consistent with a lot of things. So what are they going to do? They've got to document. In other words, they've got to write something. Document a management system based on ISO 55001, international standard, been around a long time. Include a risk management framework and the risk report. And this is an extract from our rig. They've got to do it. And it's got to be the primary means for ensuring safety. Really? So the rig says safety management system, the heart of everything. Accountabilities, responsibilities, processes, policies, procedures, typical management system. It's got to be comprehensive, integrated, and it's got to cover all parts of the dam life cycle, from design through to death, through decommissioning. So it's got to be comprehensive. Okay. Another extract. That's where the risks come in, but also the fact that the basis for your management system is based on the international standard. And very quickly, that's what that looks like. That's just the contents page of the international standard for asset management. It's, if you look at ISO 9001, 14001 for environment, 55001 for asset management, all look the same. All have the same sort of plan, do, check, act cycle built into the management system standard. So all our dam owners have got to do that to manage the risks of their dam. Lastly, competent persons. So what they've got to do, we require in the regulation that if you're doing these things, consequence category methodologies or consequence category assessment, risk report calculations, safety reviews and reviews of safety reviews where we need teams if there are certain high or extreme consequence category dam, and reviewing dam designs. So that's where we require competent persons. And this is where the definition comes in. Yeah, there's actually A, B, C, D, E, but this is the guts of it.
Did the requirement on competency led to changes or strengthening of the teams in dams, or there was no difference?
No. If you look at the ISO 55001 requirements, they've got a requirement for competency of people doing whatever job they're doing. This is specific to people that are named in our regulation for certain tasks that we think are important within this.
Are there many vacancies for competent person?
Oh. we have a regulatory problem.
There are you in the room here.
I'll tell you what, we have a regulatory problem. You know, we're talking about regulatory problems. And I think I'm going to get to run the project and solve this regulatory problem. And that is the fact that all these risk reports.
Most competent. You'll be most competent, but.
No, seriously. So we've got all these dam owners doing risk reports, and we've spread them out over 5 years to make sure we're just not hitting consultants and competent people all at the same time. However, I think we're finding we're a little bit short of the numbers. So if you want to come and work in New South Wales as a conference.
So now.
Okay. So what are the other regulation requirements? I think that we've gone and drowned out the heading, but other things that are in our regulation. Back in 2015, when the Act was written, they didn't know about management systems, so they just thought that the important things were an operations plan and an emergency plan. So that's separate, kind of separately handled, but we take the view that everything comes under the dam safety management system. But there are specific requirements for emergency plans and operations. They've also got a requirement to report incidents to us, carry out safety reviews. So we've got a risk report every 5 years. Every third one of those, in other words, every 15 years, they've got to do a high level safety review over the top, which really takes it, the dam or an existing dam back to first principles and design. So if we had this old dam now and we're designing it, what sort of things do we know about hydrology, geology now that wasn't known previously? So it's a high level study every 15 years. And of course, very important, design and construction. Most important phase of the dam is that anybody that designs or constructs a dam does so under a management system. So it's that management system theme again, ISO 9001, and we do audits on new work to make sure that they're employing the right management system standards and their design inputs are right. Have they designed the hydrology for climate change? Those sort of things is all built into the design and build. That's it.